姑娘，大宝，
在这样发展，人类的器官会不断的移植，甚至越活越年轻，甚至会长生不老。
有人预测呢，本世纪呢，可能未来可以活到150岁。
Well, Greg, we'll start with why they even had the parade in the first instance. We'll get into its detail in a moment, but ostensibly they were claiming that they won the war against the Japanese, but you and I know this wasn't accurate. It wasn't Mao Zedong who was running it anyway at the time, and it certainly was the Americans who should have been a feature of today's parade. Of course, they weren't. This wasn't about history and the past. This was all about setting up for the next decade, wasn't it?
Peter, it's great to be with you and welcome back. Our nation is better now that you're back. You're absolutely right. You know, the communist view of history is always wildly distorted. So the government in Beijing, or the government in China during World War II was the nationalist government of the Kuomintang Chiang Kai-shek. Now they fought very hard against the Japanese and they lost huge numbers of troops. The Chinese Communist Party did do some fighting against the Japanese, but it was predominantly interested in fighting the nationalists for power within China. And it's partly because of the losses that the nationalists suffered fighting the Japanese that they were able to be beaten by the communists in the Civil War. Kind of a parallel sort of thing happened in Yugoslavia. You know, the communists want to kill the non-Nazi, non-communist alternative and then claim for themselves the raiments of heroism in fighting against the aggressor. So, you know, it's fair enough for China to celebrate, you know, its resistance to the Japanese in World War II. But this was not a Communist Party show. This was a Kuomintang show.
Well, thank you for clearing that up, because I think a lot of your media colleagues have forgotten that little bit of fact-based history, Greg. I want to show our viewers a bit of a lengthy post today from Donald Trump, who said, "Please give my warmest regards to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un as you conspire against the United States of America." Now, it was a pretty tough post. What do you make of that, and what stood out for you from President Xi's speech?
Well, Peter, this is a very disagreeable conclusion for me to reach, but I write about it at length in tomorrow's paper. This was a tremendous victory for Xi and a tremendous defeat for Trump. Only a genius as crazy as Trump could lose India to China. Now, Narendra Modi didn't stay for the military parade, but he attended the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting and palled it up with Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping. Why did he do that? Because Trump insanely has imposed a 50% punitive tariff on India for trading with Russia, while it imposes no similar penalty on China and has imposed no extra penalty on Putin after Trump had his love-in with him in Alaska. So there's a chaos and madness to Trump policy, which Xi Jinping has capitalised on brilliantly. He had a whole swag of leaders from Southeast Asia there, the Prime Minister of Malaysia, the President of Vietnam, the Prime Minister of South Korea, and this is a definitive loss for the West. I mean, we've got to face reality here. We've lost the argument with the Global South about the idea that the Russian aggression in Ukraine had to be universally condemned and properly resisted, because China is flouting that all, and with Iran and North Korea, it's directly supporting the Russian war effort, and Xi Jinping can turn out a tremendous retinue of national leaders from all over the Global South, much more than Donald Trump could turn out for his military parade in Washington. I think this is a very bad day for the West, a very good day for communist dictatorship.
Now, Donald Trump has reacted to the spectacle. He wrote on Truth Social, "May President Xi and the wonderful people of China have a great and lasting day of celebration. Please give my warmest regards to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong as you conspire against the United States of America." Dan, the Trump administration is certainly taking on China, Russia, Iran. All three were emboldened under the Biden administration. That's changed now.
Well, it has. I mean, weakness is provocative, and Trump sort of confounds a lot of his critics, because on the one hand he says, I don't want to get engaged in foreign entanglements and unnecessary wars, and so his critics will say he's being weak, he's kowtowing. But then he's very strong when it comes to standing up to these authoritarian regimes as well. We know that weakness is provocative, and Trump has definitely understood that. And also more broadly, I mean, what Trump has done is made a point of saying allies need to do more, whether it's the NATO allies, whether it's the UK, whether it's Canada or Australia. And I think that's entirely reasonable. You mentioned before the prospect of China invading Taiwan. Well, we need to be prepared for those scenarios.
It's in our backyard, and this is what people don't understand. I don't know how they still don't understand, and you could understand the confusion perhaps back in 2016, but we've seen a lot of Trump in power, and we know how he operates now, and they still seem to be completely perplexed. But the end result is the NATO partners are spending a lot more on defence. They're a lot stronger than they were before Trump, and he's even using the tariffs to encourage certain behaviours from these countries. We saw heavier tariffs imposed on India because of their trade with Russia and China. So he may not want to be involved in forever wars, but that doesn't mean he's an isolationist.
Well, that's right, and this is something that people haven't understood about his tariffs. Everybody understands that tariffs are not economically efficient. Everyone gets that. The point here is exactly as you say, it gives political leverage to achieve other outcomes. That's why he's used it, and he's been explicit with that. He has actually said, I want to do it because of revenue that we get, to protect local jobs, and to use it in negotiations with other countries. And the critics who are solely focused on the economics of it don't understand the geopolitics of it.
The geopolitics are pretty obvious, but I think they're just so determined to paint chaos around Trump that they don't see that. And he did that even with the NATO partners. I think there was Spain who refused to increase their spending, so he said, oh, I'll just hit you with heavier tariffs until you increase your spending.